when we talk about how yoga affects calcium homeostasis, part of that is the impact it has on the skeleton, which is what led me here, right? Calcium is the skeleton is arguably the most important. Well, it certainly is the most important repository. It's the place that all the calcium gets stored in. But the regulation of circulating calcium, the calcium homeostasis, directly relates to the density of bone. We talked about calcium recycling with the osteoclasts that dissolve bone and the osteoblasts that build bone up. And I talked about how yoga or any weight-bearing exercise compresses the collagen and reveals charges and creates what's called the piezoelectric effect in the bone that draws the osteoblasts to those charge carriers, and they mineralize the bone and make the bone thicker. So, but circulating levels of calcium are, there are other ways to turn osteoblasts on and off, and they are by the last time, the calcitonin and then the calcitriol and parathyroid. And again, so I guess I finished off last time talking about the two loops in the homeostatic system. Calcium is too high in your, which actually a much rarer, too high, calcitonin comes into play, helps back down, storing a lot of it. Some of it pass out. On the other hand, when it's low, you want to release parathyroid, release calcium. So this is going to upregulate osteoclasts, downregulate, upregulate osteoblasts. And their absorption. Got it. So when we look at this, we see that the thyroid and parathyroid, two glands that are in intimate juxtaposition with one another, are essential for the regulation of calcium, circulating calcium. So thyroid and parathyroid health, having them function properly, keeping those glands supple and fully functional is key to being able for them to be able to be the sensors that are going to be able to monitor the circulating calcium in the blood. Because what happens is blood passes through the thyroid, it monitors what that calcium level is in the blood, and then it responds. Too high, the thyroid comes. Too low, the parathyroid. Okay? So let's see how yoga can affect the thyroid. All right. So here are some poses that I'm going to show you a series of yoga poses that are specific to the thyroid, that target the thyroid. So here are a couple poses that press the thyroid. We'll remember that the thyroid is here. You can feel where your thyroid is. If you put your finger to your Adam's apple, that's the thyroid cartilage. So then shift it down a little bit to the soft tissue. Just shift it down about an inch or so, inch and a half. The soft tissue that is like wings. You'll feel your sternocleidomastoids, these muscles. You'll feel those just lateral, and in that notch right there, you'll be able to feel your thyroid. And it's a good thing. Give your thyroid a little massage. It's not bad to massage your thyroid. That's what the yoga is doing. That's what the yoga is doing. It's going to be compressing. These are compressions. And what a compression does is it excludes blood from that tissue, and it's going to work the connective tissue, the reticular fibers that are all throughout that organ. All right. So we've already seen the second literature paper that we went through. We saw how um, connective tissue responds to stretching, right? And compression, physical, mechanical deformation. Connective tissue responds and down regulates growth factors that lead to the hardening of that tissue, to the laying down excessive collagen, right? And so what we're doing by this compression, we're doing a couple things. We are excluding blood from the tissue, which is going to be good when it's paired with another pose, which leads to perfusion of that tissue. And it's also stretching the connective tissue in that organ and allowing that tissue to be more supple, to allow better flow of blood through that tissue so that all of the cells in that organ are fully coming in contact with the blood that it's meant to be monitored. Okay? So here we have halasana, plow pose, and I think we did plow once. Who did plow with you? Did I do plow with you? I did? I don't remember. I got that far, but we've done it. Huh? Oh, Mari did this one, the pregnant one. So plow pose, and you can see that this like strong flexion of the neck. Poses that do strong supported flexion of the neck, you're going to be compressing the thyroid. All right. So here are a couple perfusion poses. So this one is fish pose, and this is actually a sort of beginning form of fish pose. Fish pose in a more advanced state has the head, it brings the head actually below the heart. The head comes below the heart, but strongly opens that throat. So this is a fish pose in Ashtanga. Fish pose is actually the counter pose to plow. So you do plow, and in the Ashtanga sequence, you come out of plow, and you immediately go into fish pose. And another pose is Bhujangasana, or cobra pose. Also, upward facing dog is both of those are poses that are going to stretch the tissue. So this is a perfusion pose here, and this is a stretch that is countering the compression that happened. This, you're also getting perfusion here, but this really is focused more on that stretch of tissue. All right. And then here are a couple. There's camel pose, which, again, you can see how this is a stretch similar to upward facing dog. This is kind of intermediate to fish pose. You're not actually bringing in camel pose, the way camel pose continues past where your hands are your ankle, you can bring the head, the neck lower than advanced. But at least she's getting that stretch. And what's nice about cat-cow pose is that it's a sort of pumping action on the thyroid when done properly. You're really getting into the cat pose and driving that chin down into the manubrium of your sternum. You're getting that compression, and then it's followed in short order with your breath with a perfusion and stretch. So cat-cow pose is actually a really excellent pose for the thyroid for fish pose or stand. Maybe you have problems and don't want hands, shoulders raised. Any questions on this? I mean, you know, cat-cow pose is an excellent pose, anyways, because look at how much change she's getting in the thoracic spine and in the lumbar spine. You're working that fibrocartilage front to back, keeping that tissue supple, drawing to it. That's cat-cow pose is often overlooked, but it's like a really excellent pose if you get into it. So, all right, I'm going to talk just a bit about osteoporosis because there are 10 out of the 12 people in this class are women, and women are particularly vulnerable to osteoporosis. Men can be subject to it as well, but it hits a lot of women. So there are almost 9 million fractures. These statistics are 2016. But 9 million fractures worldwide. That's a fracture every 3 seconds. It's a fracture every 3 seconds that are attributable to osteoporosis. So that's 240 million worldwide. That's almost 1% of all men, women. Right? No. People are 8 billion, right? That is a quarter of that would be 3%. It's 3% of the world's population. 1 in every 30. So this happens to about 1 in 10 women age 60, but it gets much more frequent above age 5, age 70, 2 in 5, age 80. And if you make it to 90, go girl, but 2/3 of you are on track, all other things being equal, for some kind of osteoporosis. All right. So, yeah, that's over 60 million people in the United States by the year 2020. 60 million in the United States alone. That's 25% of. Wow. What's going on here in America? America is really getting hit by this. Yes, ma'am. Yep. Yeah, sure. Yeah, guy just did that to me in the hall. The guy was going up the staircase, and it was a reaction. I'm sorry, he caught my eye. Sophie, my heart goes out to your high school coach. I was not like pregnancy, so it's hard on the body. No.
I was like, oh, okay.
Sorry. All right. Right. Well, so America is not a quarter of the world's population. It's not a quarter of the world's population, is it? But it has a quarter of the global number of osteoporosis. So you are at a higher risk of osteoporosis living in America. There are some reasons for this. America, by and large, has a diet that does not support bone health. America has a more sedentary lifestyle. America sits in chairs as opposed to sitting with their legs crossed on the ground or something like that, which can lead to osteoporosis in the hips, right? Americans are less flexible because of that, less able to navigate that. There could be other problems that we could get in. But this is about $30 billion worldwide. $30 billion. That's a pretty good chunk of change, you know. That's a third, 30 billion. That's a third of the amount of money that Saudi Arabia wants to spend on weapons from the U.S. Right? Okay, let's keep going. Osteoporosis. Well, here's what it looks like. And you guys may be familiar with some people in your lives, how, seeing your grandma change. Maybe when you were a kid, your grandpa looked like that. This, right? And this is the slow progression. These bones begin to collapse on themselves. We have seen some pictures. You have morphological. So one of the reasons, and we're not going to get deeply into the molecular pathogenesis of osteoporosis because it's but you probably are already familiar with this down that osteoporosis correlates. I showed you those statistics in the previous slide. It correlates with the advent of menopause, right? The end of a woman's menstrual cycle, which happens in their mid-50s. And when this happens, estrogen production falls off a cliff for a lot of them. And so the thing about estrogen is it helps. So osteoblasts and osteoclasts, particularly osteoblasts, are regulated in a lot of different ways. A lot of different things affect osteoblast activity. We've talked about how PTH and calcitonin both affect osteoblast activity. Well, estrogen does. So it regulates bone density in both men and women, but the disadvantage that women have is that they go through menopause. Men do not. Their estrogen levels stay comparatively stable throughout life. Men's estrogen levels stay comparatively stable. Estrogen is going to inhibit the resorption by osteoclasts. So let's look at bone density with. Here we go. Blue is men, and red is women. Both of men and women reach their peak bone density between the ages of 25. You kind of reach this plateau of bone density. Throughout your life, you guys are still getting there. You're close. You're maybe at like 80% of max, but in another few years, your bones will probably reach their max density. And then after about 45, men go slow decline. Women have rapid decrease that happens in their fifth decade. That is coincident with the loss of estrogen. And when menopause is complete, then they go on a similar. But you'll notice here a couple things. First of all, that women are more susceptible because they have, on average, less dense bones. Less dense bones. And there are, yep, Molly? Yeah. So it is again is complicated, right? And it just isn't just about like having lots of estrogen in your body, because the absolute level of estrogen is not it's not the absolute level. That's right. Yeah, it's the change. So you reach a baseline that other factors in the body are tuned to, and then the baseline drops out. So, can anybody think of some reasons why the red line right here at peak bone density, why might, on average, might peak bone density be lower? I don't know. We can just like speculate because it's a problem that women are dealing with, right? They have, yep, sure. Yeah. So I didn't get into a lot of the treatments for. I intentionally cut the slide out. There's like Fosamax. It's like a inhibitor. Um, there are PTH replacement therapies. There's estrogen replacement therapies that went through. But yeah, estrogen like synthetic estrogen replacement is is associated or correlated with androgenic cancers, breast. Yeah, it's not ideal. The best thing you can do, the best thing you can do is taking your diet and exercise between the ages of 25 to 45 serious. The best correlation, the thing that most correlates with improved outcome later in life, besides genetics, is the lifestyle choices that you 25. And so this is the relation to yoga. A lot of people wait until they're here to start yoga, like something, right? They're now retired or whatever, and their knees are a wreck or whatever, and the doctor said, you should be doing yoga. Well, they should have been doing yoga 35 years. And so the choices that you make in here, in this range, it's going to determine where you are as you move forward. So those 20 years in there, those 2 decades between essentially the period that you'll be entering soon in your life, and then until you're my age, those are the most important years in terms of determining what happened towards the end. So we know that weight-bearing exercise tends to increase bone density. And if you just think about the kinds of exercises that men tend to favor versus women tend to favor, now these are generalizations that there are ample exceptions to, of course. But I mean, if you think about, you go and ask the average guy on the street, what do you do to exercise? Well, he'd be lifting some sort of weights, weight. And you ask the woman, well, the woman is more likely to get on the elliptical. They're both excellent exercises, but it's just I'm talking about the effect of weight-bearing exercise on bone density, being able to have a diverse series of activities that lead. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not telling you to go start doing deadlifting because like all that kind of stuff that men do actually has negative impacts as well on their soft tissue, right? So they're going to have a lot of this stuff can lead to problems in the fibrocartilage, the discs in their spine, other places, points. Yeah, I'm offering yoga as a type of weight bearing exercise that leads to Sure, that may be something that would correlate. So, you know, what we're doing now, say we have this question. Our question is, why is peak bone mass higher in men than I don't know. I don't know. I want to find out. Let's do a study. Let's form a hypothesis. So one hypothesis is type of exercise may dictate. Another hypothesis is the one that Molly has just here. Another, can we think of any others? How does childbirth and lactation? Because we know a lot of calcium leaves the body via milk. For infants, how is that somehow embedded in that number? Because this is an average across a lot of people. This graphic average. So you would take all of these things that may be contributing factors that you use your background information, you put together a hypothesis, and then you try to devise a study to tease those things out, looking across those different factors and see where you find actual correlations, and are they causative? Okay. Let's keep going. So, was there any potentially there? No. Here we go. Exercise hormone. So, normal bone growth, you are what you eat, right? You are what you eat. And you need to be able to have calcium coming into the body. You can't just eat a lot of calcium and expect everything to be great, because we've established that it will pass through your body. But if your body's calling for calcium and it's not in the diet, that's a problem, right? If it's calling for calcium and it's not in the diet. So we need calcium and phosphate. Remember I showed you when we were talking about hydroxyapatite for strong bone that it was this 10-to-1 calcium to phosphate ratio. You remember, you go back to that equation. Anyways, then there's all these other traces, magnesium, fluoride, that are required for optimal growth. And a lot of these manganese, these are ions that other proteins that are associated with osteoblasts or osteoclasts, they form around them. So they may not actually be part of the matrix, but they are necessary so that the proteins that do all this taken in through. And here is just an example of some places you can get calcium, a little bit of phosphate. So kidney beans, obviously, all kinds of dairy. It's really high in calcium. Broccoli, spinach, garbanzo bean. That is fish, so like cold water fish, like sardines, or if you like that kind of stuff, anchovies. There's some good. All right, kale, the mother of all brassicas. So the take home from the last couple slides is that osteoporosis prevention, it's the lifestyle choices in the next 25 years. So you guys are 18 now, so up until you're 45, the next half. Questions on any of that? All right. So there are some vitamins. We're like, this is a 100 level class, maybe a 2 or certainly a 300 level class. We would go through what vitamin C and vitamin A does, what vitamin K and B12. What are these vitamins? You've seen them on the back of your cereal box or whatever. What do they actually do? Vitamins are coenzymes. They're cofactors that help proteins do what they're supposed to do. There may be a key that turns a protein on, or at some little molecular fragment that a protein needs. But these are the ones that are required for optimal bone health. So vitamin C is extremely important to be able to make collagen. And it also, vitamin C is necessary for osteoblast differentiation. So going from the osteoprogenitor cell to the osteoblast requires vitamin C. Does anybody know what happens if you don't get enough vitamin C? Scurvy. Yeah, scurvy. It's bad news. And that's because collagen isn't getting synthesized. You need vitamin C to make your collagen. Vitamin A. Vitamin A helps stimulate osteoblastic. Turn on the osteoblasts. K and B12 are required for protein synthesis of various proteins. So we did not zoom in at all on what osteoblast, like the molecular mechanism of what an osteoblast is actually doing, right? We just sort of showed the osteoblast zooming in, and then next slide, the hydroxyapatite magically appeared. But there's all kinds of proteins. There's a detailed molecular mechanism that underlies it. And those cells, those osteoblasts, require vitamin K and vitamin B12 to make the proteins that do the dirty work. So where do you get these things? Yes. Is there? It depends on whether you like fruity or chocolate. Lucky Charms or Cocoa Puffs. I don't know. I'm not going to get into advocating breakfast cereal, but I make my own. I make granola. Okay, so let me be more serious in my response. So I personally do not believe that fortified processed foods are necessary to be able to get the minerals and vitamins that are required. When I have been showing any of these pictures, you'll notice that I've been showing pictures of whole foods. So, you want some vitamin C? Go eat an orange. There's a lot of strawberry. There's vitamin C all over. Vitamin A. You cannot get more vitamin A than in a carrot. Beta carotene is basically a dimer of vitamin A. Eat a carrot. All the vitamins. You need some B12. Well, if you're a meat eater, you can get an injection. Or you can just eat a beautiful snapper or into get vitamin B12 there. Vitamin K comes from green foods. So kale, green onion, apples, tomatoes. Yeah, plenty of vitamin K in there. So to answer your question, I don't know. You can look on the back of the box and you can believe those numbers or not. I can certainly, from my experience in my biochemistry of food class, we've tested various foods for their antioxidant potential, and the like levels that are often listed do not match with what is actually in the food by the time it gets to you, because that stuff can degrade with time, right? It's not like it lasts forever just out of the box. So eating fresh food, you kind of know where you're at. We know how much vitamin A is in a typical fresh carrot. If you take a carrot and blend it up and mix it with a bunch of like oats and honey and make some kind of hippie granola bar, and it sits on the shelf for 3 years before someone finally decides to buy it because it's weird because it's got carrot in it, then who knows how much vitamin A is in it at that point. So my advice is eat as much whole, unprocessed as possible. You know that you're getting actual nutrition. All right? You're asking me for quantities there?
Or just like...
Yeah. So, this depends on the type of vitamin, right? Some vitamins are fat soluble, some vitamins are water soluble. Water soluble vitamins, your body does not store. But it turns out that water soluble vitamins are, in general, a little bit easier to find. So it tends to not be a problem. If, like, when you're sick and you're like, I'm going to load up on vitamin C, and you drink, like, all those vitamin C packs, you know where that vitamin C goes? In the toilet. What makes you feel better is that you're drinking all that fluid. You need the fluid, for sure. But whereas, vitamin A or vitamin D, those are fat soluble, and your body can store them, right? And so you can go longer periods of time without having access a vitamin E or a vitamin A. But you need them. You need them. So, no, you don't need to get the daily recommended allowance of some vitamin. That is not, that it's a bit of a misconception that you need to have all of that every day. Honestly, it's better to think about those as averages across a week or a month, longer periods. Very, very dependent upon the vitamin that we're talking about, the particular specific nutrient. All right. Are there any other questions? Good stuff. Because ask me now. Otherwise, you can take my biochemistry of food class in the spring. Biochemistry of food? Yeah. It's fun. Huh? Nope. That's a 100 level biology classes.
What is it, a lab?
It's a lab. Yeah, where we mostly we do a lot of like cooking. We go into the teaching kitchen over in the Page Commons there. Yeah, that kitchen. Yeah, sort of. I mean, it's the science of food. It's the biochemistry of food. But yes, we do a lot of cooking. Anyways, let's whip these out. All right. So, remind me here. This paper, this was number 3. Yeah. And is this the one that I didn't give you the title? Yeah. Right. It wasn't in the Colby Library. You had to do an ILL. Right. No, that's right. That's right. I made this one. I chose this one specifically because it was getting you to use different techniques, different services within the Scopus and the ILL, giving you some experience with that. Who couldn't find it? Who couldn't solve the problem? Okay, most of you did. Okay, great. All right, so this was a pretty good paper. I don't know, it was kind of interesting. What I liked about it is it had a very, in the beginning, it had instead of the abstract, because often you see these abstracts you have to read through, and like this is like made for super speed. This paper was set up to be really speedy. I didn't need to take more than like 30 seconds to really get the point of this paper. It gave me the objective, some methods, and an outcome. Boom, right on that first page. That was super helpful. So I thought that was objective. Assess the effectiveness of skeletal yoga postures in raising bone mineral density. Pretty straightforward. That was exactly what I was looking for, and I found it. How do they do this? Well, 10-year study of a bunch of people recruited over the internet, comparing pre-yoga BMD and then post-yoga BMD, scanned 4 years before yoga, scanned 4 years before they did the yoga to see what their baseline. Then they did yoga, and they scanned 2 years following. So the outcome, some sciencey technique of bone scans, what they used to measure it, radiographs of hip and spine if the people wanted to get a little bit of radiation, and that's what they used to quantify it. So the poses that they used, pretty normal, straightforward poses. Some of them were kind of advanced. Marichyasana is pretty hard, although she's and this guy's knees should be above the heels. Yeah, like they put these. Yeah, they had a DVD. Right, they didn't have a person actually. Yeah, 12-minute video. I guess, but I mean these. It was. That's right. That's right.
Some of them.
So, anyways, here are the poses, and these were the results. So, spine, hips, and femur. Without going through them, I'm going to ask you some questions. So, which of these shows a positive correlation between bone density and yoga practice? What would you say? Positive correlation. So, we have before and after of the spine, hips, and femur. Which of them was a positive correlation between bone density and yoga practice? In other words, which of those graphs indicates that the yoga was correlated with an improvement in bone density? Both spine and yeah, the error bar confuses it, but the range of the error bars, even if you just compare the range of the error bars, there's some room in here. There's space in here. There's space in here. All right? And even as the error bars, if you have a huge error bar, it can make the question sort of hard to untangle. But you can assume that median value probably is somewhere near the median of that distribution, middle of that distribution. So spine and femur. How about this? Which of these three areas demonstrated the strongest correlation? Yeah, okay. The spine. And we can say that because we can look at the median values. That distance between the median value is a little bit larger than the spine. All right? Also keeping scale widely, a much larger scale than femur, much gentler relation. All right. Any negative or inconclusive correlations? Yeah, hips, of course. So the ranges of the two of them totally swamped out the median value of the other, and vice versa. This median value swallowed up. So, all right, results. It appears to raise BMD in the spine and the femur safely, inconclusive in the hips, probably because there are other factors affecting the hips. All right.